Hey, and welcome to Puzzlehead. This channel is all about engaging stories with clever twists, unexpected turns, and moments that will pull you in emotionally. So if you enjoy drama, surprises, and endings that truly hit, then you're in the right place. Subscribe and join us for stories full of secrets, intense moments, and satisfying outcomes. Now, don't forget to turn on notifications. The next puzzle is about to begin.
Nothing says love like being left on hold by your own wife. I'm Alex Belmonte, 42 years old, and I've been married to Marta for 18 years. This morning, she barely looked up from her phone when I kissed her goodbye. "Have a safe trip, honey," she said, eyes glued to her screen. Her tone was flat, mechanical, like she was reading from a script. The same script she'd been using for months now. I was heading to Chicago for a 3-day finance conference. Nothing exciting, just spreadsheets and PowerPoint presentations and about quarterly projections. But Marta used to care about my trips. She used to pack my bags, slip little notes into my suitcase, call me every night. Now she couldn't even fake interest. "I'll call you tonight," I said, testing her. Still scrolling. I grabbed my suitcase and headed for the door. That's when I heard her phone buzz with a text. Her face lit up like Christmas morning, the same face that used to light up for me. "Who's texting you so early?" I asked. "Just work stuff," she said quickly, flipping the phone face down. "Jake needs some creative input on the Morrison account. Jake Turnbull, creative director at her advertising agency. 38 years old, drives a restored 1909 Camaro, and thinks he's God's gift to marketing. I'd met him at company parties, the kind of guy who calls everyone buddy and talks too loud about his weekend adventures." "Since when do you work on Saturdays?" I pressed. "Since we landed the Morrison account. It's a big deal, Alex. You wouldn't understand." There it was, the dismissal. The subtle put-down wrapped in professional necessity. I'd been getting a lot of those lately. I should have left then. Should have driven to the airport, caught my flight, spent 3 days learning about market volatility. Instead, I lingered by the door, watching my wife of 18 years act like a teenager with a crush. "Marta? What?" She looked annoyed that I was still there. "Never mind, I love you. Love you too," she said. But she was already typing a response to Jake. The drive to the airport gave me time to think. Too much time. Marta had been distant for months, late nights at the office, weekend emergencies that required her immediate attention, new clothes, new perfume, new excuses. I'm not stupid. I work in finance. I notice patterns, trends, anomalies in data. My marriage had become a spreadsheet full of red flags. At the airport, I got a text from Pete, my work buddy. "Flight delayed 2 hours, weather in Chicago, grab a drink." 2 hours, enough time to think, to worry, to imagine worst-case scenarios. I found Pete at the airport bar, nursing a beer and complaining about airline food. "You look like heck," he said when I sat down. "Thanks. You always know how to make a guy feel better. Seriously, what's wrong? You've been weird for weeks." I ordered a whiskey. "Marriage stuff?" Pete nodded knowingly. "The 7-year itch? Try 18-year itch. Ouch, that's more like a rash." Despite everything, I laughed. Pete had a gift for inappropriate humor at exactly the right moments. "Want to talk about it?" he asked. I almost did. Almost told him about Marta's cold shoulders, her mysterious texts, her sudden passion for weekend work. But talking about it would make it real, would force me to acknowledge what I already knew. "Maybe later," I said. My phone buzzed. Text from Marta. "Forgot to mention, staying late at Victoria's tonight. Sister stuff. Don't wait up." Victoria. Marta's younger sister. 36, divorced twice, and proud of it. She collected men like some people collect stamps, and she had strong opinions about marriage. Specifically, that it was a patriarchal institution designed to oppress women. "Everything okay?" Pete asked, noticing my expression. "Yeah, just wife stuff." But it wasn't okay. Marta never stayed at Victoria's on Saturday nights. Victoria's Saturday nights were reserved for prowling downtown bars, looking for husband number 3. I called Marta, straight to voicemail. "This is Marta. Leave a message." Beep. "Hey, just wanted to say I love you. Call me when you get this." She didn't call back. The flight to Chicago was turbulent. Not just the weather, my thoughts kept circling back to Marta, to Jake, to the way she'd smiled at her phone. I tried to focus on my presentation notes, but the numbers blurred together. 3 hours later, I was sitting in a hotel room in downtown Chicago, staring at my phone. Still no call from Marta. It was almost midnight back home. I tried calling again. This time the phone rang once before going to voicemail. She'd declined the call. That's when I knew. You don't decline calls from your husband unless you're doing something you shouldn't be doing. Or someone you shouldn't be doing. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Marta's face lighting up at that text message. I heard her voice saying, "Jake needs some creative input," with just a little too much enthusiasm. By morning, I'd made a decision. I called the airline and changed my return flight. Instead of coming home Tuesday night, I'd be back Monday afternoon. A surprise. If Marta was cheating, I'd catch her. If she wasn't, I'd feel like an idiot, but at least I'd know. Either way, the not knowing was ending me. The conference was a blur of spreadsheets and small talk. I went through the motions, attended the sessions, networked with colleagues, but my mind was 300 miles away. Every time my phone buzzed, I hoped it was Marta. Never was. Sunday night, I tried calling her again. This time she answered on the fourth ring. "Alex, how's Chicago?" "Fine, boring. How was your weekend?" "Oh, worked Saturday, then spent yesterday with Victoria. We went shopping, had lunch, caught up on gossip." Her voice sounded normal, too normal, like she'd rehearsed this conversation. What kind of gossip? Sister stuff. You wouldn't be interested. There it was again, the dismissal. "Try me," I said, and just relationship drama. "Victoria's dating someone new, some guy from her yoga class." Victoria didn't do yoga. Victoria thought yoga was for people who had given up on real exercise. "That's nice," I said. "What's he like?" A pause. "I don't know. I haven't met him yet." The lie came so easily, so smoothly. How long had she been lying to me? "Well, I should get some sleep," I said. "Early flight tomorrow." "Okay, love you." "Love you too." But the words felt hollow, like we were both just going through the motions. Monday morning, I caught the first flight home. I'd told Marta I wouldn't be back until evening, so I had the whole afternoon to figure out what was really going on. I drove straight home from the airport. Marta's car wasn't in the driveway, which was normal for a Monday afternoon. She'd be at work until 6. The house felt different somehow. Not physically, everything was where it should be, but there was an energy, a tension in the air, like the aftermath of an argument. I walked through the living room, looking for clues. The couch cushions were slightly disheveled. There were 2 wine glasses in the kitchen sink, both with lipstick stains. Marta's lipstick was coral pink. One of the glasses had darker red lipstick. My heart started pounding. I checked the bedroom. The bed was made, but not the way Marta usually made it. She was obsessive about hospital corners. Perfect symmetry. This bed looked like someone had made it in a hurry. In the bathroom, I found a man's watch on the counter. Expensive, not mine. I picked it up with shaking hands. The inscription on the back read, "To Jake, time to make your mark. Love, Mom." Jake Turnbull had been in my house, in my bedroom. I sat on the edge of the bed staring at the watch. 18 years of marriage, and it came down to this. A forgotten watch and 2 wine glasses with different shades of lipstick. The front door opened downstairs. "Alex, you home early?" Marta's voice, bright and cheerful. Fake. I slipped the watch into my pocket and went downstairs. "Flight got moved up," I said. "How was work?" "Crazy busy. The Morrison account is consuming my life." She kissed me on the cheek, but her eyes didn't meet mine. "I'm exhausted. Mind if I take a bath?" "Go ahead. I'll start dinner." She headed upstairs and I heard the bathroom door close. Then I heard her gasp. She'd noticed the missing watch. I pulled out my phone and called the only private investigator I knew. Nina Grant. I'd met her through work. She specialized in corporate fraud cases, tough as nails, with a deadpan sense of humor that could cut glass. "Alex Belmonte?" she said when she answered. "What's the emergency? Someone embezzling from your company?" "Different kind of theft," I said. "I need you to investigate my wife." A pause. "Cheating?" "I think so." "You think so, or you know so?" "I found evidence, but I need proof." "Evidence can be misleading. Proof is what stands up in court." "You sure you want to go down this road?" I looked up the stairs, toward the bathroom where my wife was probably texting her lover about the missing watch. "I'm sure." "Okay. My rate is $200 a day plus expenses. I'll need photos of both of them, addresses, workplace information, and a retainer of $1,000. Done. One more thing, Alex. Sometimes the truth is worse than the suspicion. You ready for that?" I thought about the watch in my pocket, about Marta's fake smile, about 18 years of marriage dissolving into lies and excuses. I'm ready. Nina Grant worked fast. Within 48 hours, she had enough evidence to bury Marta and Jake both. We met at a diner downtown, away from anywhere Marta might see us. Nina slid a manila folder across the table. Your wife's got more moves than the NASDAQ, she said, and about as much stability. I opened the folder. Photographs. Time-stamped, dated, undeniable. Marta and Jake entering the Riverside Hotel. Tuesday, 2:17 p.m. Marta and Jake kissing in the parking lot behind her office. Wednesday, 6:45 when Jake leaving my house. Thursday, 11:30 a.m., while I was in Chicago. How long? I asked. Based on the credit card records you gave me access to, at least 3 months, maybe longer. They're not exactly careful about covering their tracks. Nina lit a cigarette, ignoring the no smoking sign. Your wife charged a weekend getaway to Lake Geneva on your joint credit card. Same weekend you were visiting your mother in Florida. I remembered that weekend. Marta had said she needed time alone to recharge. I'd felt guilty for leaving her. There's more, Nina continued. Jake's been using your wife to get information about your company. Financial projections, client lists, merger discussions, stuff that would be worth a lot to your competitors. What? Your laptop. The one your wife borrowed for her work project. Jake's been copying files. Industrial espionage wrapped up in adultery. It's like a 2-for-1 special. The betrayal went deeper than I'd imagined. It wasn't just my marriage. It was my career, my reputation, my entire life. What do you want to do about it? Nina asked. I stared at the photographs. Marta looked happy in them. Happier than she'd looked with me in years. I want to destroy them, I said. Legally? Completely, Nina smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. Now you're talking my language. That night, I followed Jake to Murphy's Tavern, a dive bar downtown where he apparently went to celebrate his conquests. His restored Camaro sat in the parking lot like a trophy, gleaming under the streetlights. I'd brought supplies. Sugar for the gas tank. An old myth, but it would gum up his fuel system enough to cause problems. A knife for the tires. And a tube of Marta's coral pink lipstick. The sugar went in first. Then I slashed 3 tires, not all 4, because insurance would cover that. 3 tires meant it was vandalism, and Jake would have to pay out of pocket. Finally, I used the lipstick to write a message on his windshield. Cheaters never win, a friend. I was finishing the last letter when footsteps crunched on gravel behind me. What the heck are you doing? Jake Turnbull stood 10 feet away, swaying slightly. He'd had a few drinks, but not enough to make him harmless. Returning your property, I said, holding up the lipstick. Marta left this at my house, along with your watch. His face went pale. Alex, I can explain. Explain what? How you've been screwing my wife, or how you've been stealing from my company? It's not like that. It's exactly like that. I stepped closer. You're a thief, Jake. You steal wives. You steal data. You steal other people's lives. But you're a sloppy thief. He tried to look tough, puffing out his chest like a rooster. You don't know what you're talking about. I know you've been copying files from my laptop. I know about the Lake Geneva weekend. I know about the Riverside Hotel. I pulled out my phone, showed him one of Nina's photographs. I know everything. The fight went out of him. His shoulders sagged, and suddenly he looked older, smaller. What do you want? He asked. I want you to stay away from my wife. I want you to delete every file you copied from my computer. And I want you to start looking for a new job, because by tomorrow morning, everyone at your agency is going to know exactly what kind of man you are. You can't. Watch me. I walked away, leaving him standing next to his vandalized car. Behind me, I heard him cursing, kicking at the slashed tires. The next morning, I put Nina's plan into action. First, I sent the photographs to Dave Millant, Marta's boss. Not all of them, just enough to show that Marta was having an affair with a client's creative director. A professional ethics violation that would put both their jobs at risk. Then I sent copies to Jake's wife, Sarah. She deserved to know what her husband was doing in his spare time. Finally, I sent them to Victoria, Marta's sister. Not because I thought Victoria would care about the affair, she'd probably applaud it. But because Victoria was the biggest gossip in the city, and by noon, everyone in Marta's social circle would know about Jake. I was at work when Marta called. Alex, we need to talk. About what? You know what? Dave called me into his office this morning. Someone sent him pictures. Pictures of what? A long pause. Don't play dumb. It doesn't suit you. I'm not playing anything, Marta. I'm just asking what kind of pictures would upset your boss. Fine, you want me to say it? Someone has pictures of me and Jake. Jake from your office? The one who needed creative input on the Morrison account? Yes. Interesting. What kind of pictures? The kind that could ruin my career. Sounds serious. Maybe you should have thought about that before you started screwing him. Silence. Then, how long have you known? Long enough. Alex, I can explain. Like Jake explained? Save it, Marta. I'll be home at 6. We'll talk then. I hung up and sat back in my chair. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. Marta was waiting for me when I got home. She'd been crying. Her makeup was smudged, her eyes red and puffy. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Alex, please, let me explain. Explain what? The affair, the lies, or the fact that you gave Jake access to my laptop so he could steal company secrets? Her face went white. What? You didn't know. Your boyfriend's been using you to commit corporate espionage. Very romantic. That's impossible. Jake wouldn't. Jake would, and Jake did. I have proof. I showed her the evidence Nina had gathered. The copied files, the suspicious emails, the pattern of data theft that coincided perfectly with their affair. Oh my God, Marta whispered. I had no idea. Maybe, or maybe you're a better liar than I thought. Alex, you have to believe me. I never meant for any of this to happen. But it did happen. For 3 months, you've been lying to me, cheating on me, and helping someone steal from my company. Whether you meant it or not is irrelevant. She started crying again. Real tears this time, not the crocodile tears she'd used to manipulate me for years. What do you want me to do? She asked. I want you to pack a bag and stay at Victoria's for a while. I need time to think. Alex, please, we can work through this. We can go to counseling. We can get divorced. The words hung in the air between us like a death sentence. You don't mean that, she said. I've never meant anything more in my life. She left that night, taking a suitcase and her wounded pride. I sat in the empty house, surrounded by 18 years of memories, and started planning my next move. Jake wasn't done. Men like Jake never were. They pushed until someone pushed back harder. He proved me right the next evening. I was in my home office, going through financial records for the divorce, when I heard glass breaking downstairs. Then footsteps, clumsy and urgent. I grabbed the baseball bat I kept by my desk and crept downstairs. Jake was in the living room, searching through drawers, muttering to himself. Looking for something? I asked. He spun around, wild-eyed and desperate. Where is it? Where's what? The laptop, the files, whatever evidence you think you have. Safe and sound, along with copies in 3 different locations. You don't understand. Those files could ruin me. They already have. I was right. Nina had called that afternoon to tell me Jake had been fired. Not just from his job, from the entire industry. Word traveled fast in advertising, and nobody wanted to hire a creative director who stole client data. I need those files back, Jake said, taking a step toward me. You need a lot of things. A new job, a new wife, a new life. But you're not getting my files. He lunged at me then, desperation making him reckless. I sidestepped and brought the bat up, not to hit him but to block his advance. I wouldn't, I said. Breaking and entering is already a felony. Assault would just make it worse. He stopped, breathing hard. You've destroyed everything. You destroyed everything. I just documented it. Marta loves me. Marta loves the idea of you. The excitement, the danger, the rebellion against her boring husband. But love? Real love? You wouldn't recognize it if it bit you on the backside. You don't know what you're talking about. I know Marta better than you ever will. I know she gets cranky when she's hungry, that she cries at dog food commercials, that she's terrified of spiders but pretends to be brave. I know she talks in her sleep and steals the covers and makes the best chocolate chip cookies in the world. I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. What do you know about her, Jake? Besides how she looks without clothes. He didn't answer. That's what I thought. You don't love her. You love the conquest. The thrill of taking something that belonged to someone else. But the thrill's gone now, isn't it? Now that everyone knows what you are. She'll come back to me, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Will she? When she finds out you used her to steal company secrets? When she realizes you've destroyed her career along with your own? When she's sitting in Victoria's spare bedroom, wondering how she threw away 18 years of marriage for a man who can't even keep a job? I pulled out my phone. I'm calling the police. You have 30 seconds to get out of my house before they arrive. He ran. Actually ran, stumbling over furniture in his haste to escape. I heard his car start outside. Apparently, he'd gotten the tires fixed and watched his taillights disappear into the night. I didn't call the police. I had something better in mind. The next morning, I called Sarah Turnbull, Jake's soon-to-be ex-wife. Mrs. Turnbull, this is Alex Belmonte. I think we should meet. Sarah Turnbull was nothing like I'd expected. I'd imagined someone bitter, angry, out for revenge. Instead, she was calm, composed, almost serene. We met at a coffee shop downtown, two casualties of the same war. Thank you for the photographs, she said without preamble. I've suspected for months, but I needed proof. I'm sorry you had to see them. Don't be. Ignorance isn't bliss. It's just ignorance. She stirred her coffee thoughtfully. Jake thinks he's irresistible. He has no idea how predictable he is. This isn't his first affair. Third that I know of. Probably more that I don't. She looked up at me with surprisingly kind eyes. How are you holding up? Better than expected. Worse than I'd like. She nodded. The anger helps at first, but it fades and then you're left with the sadness. Any advice? Don't let them take your dignity. Everything else can be replaced. Sarah reached into her purse and pulled out a manila envelope. Jake doesn't know I have these. Financial records, emails, some interesting photographs from his previous affairs. I thought you might find them useful. I opened the envelope. Inside were bank statements showing large cash withdrawals, emails discussing discreet meetings with various women, and photographs that made Nina's surveillance shots look tame. Why are you giving me these? Because Jake destroyed our marriage, and now he's trying to destroy yours. But you're fighting back. I never did. She stood up, gathering her purse. Make him pay, Alex, for both of us. That afternoon, I put the final phase of my plan into motion. I called Dave Millant, Marta's boss, and requested a meeting. We met in his office, surrounded by awards and motivational posters that seemed to mock the situation. Alex, I want you to know that we had no idea about the affair, Dave began. It's not about the affair, I interrupted. It's about the theft. I showed him the evidence of Jake's corporate espionage, the stolen files, the pattern of data breaches that coincided with his relationship with Marta. Dave's face grew pale as he flipped through the documents. This is serious. We could lose clients over this. Our reputation could be damaged, yes, unless you take immediate action. What kind of action? Fire Marta. Publicly. Make it clear that your agency has zero tolerance for employees who compromise client security. Alex, I understand you're angry, but I'm not angry, Dave. I'm practical. Marta gave Jake access to confidential information. Whether she knew what he was doing with it or not, she violated client trust. You keep her on staff, and every client you have will wonder what other secrets she's shared. Dave was quiet for a long moment, staring at the evidence spread across his desk. I'll need to discuss this with the partners, he said finally. Of course, but Dave, the longer you wait, the more likely this becomes public knowledge. And once it's public, you lose control of the narrative. Marta was fired the next morning. Not quietly, not discreetly, but with a company-wide email explaining that she had been terminated for serious violations of client confidentiality and professional ethics. My phone rang 20 minutes later. You bastard, Marta screamed. You cost me my job. You cost yourself your job. I just made sure everyone knew about it. I'll fight this. I'll sue them. I'll sue you. With what money? You're unemployed, remember? And Jake can't help you. He's unemployed too. This isn't over, Alex. Yes, it is. You just don't know it yet. She hung up, but I knew she'd call back. Marta never could leave well enough alone. I was right. She called that evening, calmer but no less desperate. Alex, we need to talk. In person. I don't think that's a good idea. Please, I'll come alone. No Jake, no lawyers, no drama. Just us. Against my better judgment, I agreed. She arrived an hour later, looking haggard and defeated. The confident, successful woman I'd married was gone, replaced by someone I barely recognized. I'm sorry, she said as soon as I opened the door. For everything. The affair, the lies, the laptop, all of it. Okay, that's it? Just okay? What do you want me to say, Marta? That I forgive you? That we can work it out? That 18 years of marriage means more than 3 months of betrayal? I want you to fight for us. I did fight for years. Every time you came home late, every time you picked up your phone during dinner, every time you looked at me like I was an inconvenience. I fought to save our marriage while you were planning to leave it. She started crying again. I never meant to hurt you, but you did. And worse, you didn't care that you did. You were so caught up in your exciting new romance that you forgot I existed. Jake said, I don't care what Jake said. Jake's a liar and a thief, and you chose him over me. That's not his fault. It's yours. He's gone, she whispered. Jake's gone. He left town yesterday. Didn't even say goodbye. I wasn't surprised. Men like Jake were experts at cutting their losses. I'm sorry, I said, and I meant it. Not sorry that Jake was gone, but sorry that Marta was learning the hard way what kind of man she'd thrown her marriage away for. Can we try again? She asked. Start over? No. Alex, please. No, Marta. We can't start over because we never really started at all. We just drifted along, pretending everything was fine until you found someone more interesting. That's not true, isn't it? When's the last time you asked me about my day and actually listened to the answer? When's the last time we had a conversation that didn't involve schedules or bills or household logistics? When's the last time you looked at me the way you looked at that text message from Jake? She didn't answer because she couldn't. We both knew the truth. I want a divorce, I said quietly. Clean, simple, no fault. We'll split the assets 50-50 and we'll both move on with our lives. What if I don't agree? Then we'll do it the hard way. And trust me, Marta, you don't want to do it the hard way. The divorce proceedings were supposed to be civilized. Mediation instead of litigation, compromise instead of combat. Marta's lawyer had assured her it would be quick and painless. He was wrong. I arrived at the mediator's office with Nina Grant and 3 boxes of evidence. Financial records, surveillance photos, corporate theft documentation, and Sarah Turnbull's gift. Jake's history of affairs and financial irregularities. Marta sat across from me with her lawyer, a young man in an expensive suit who clearly thought he was dealing with a routine divorce case. Mr. Belmonte, the mediator began, I understand you're seeking a 50-50 division of assets. That seems reasonable given the length of the marriage. Actually, I said, I've reconsidered. I want 70-30. Marta's lawyer leaned forward. On what grounds? I nodded to Nina, who opened the first box. Adultery, corporate espionage, and financial malfeasance. I said, take your pick. For the next hour, we laid out the case. Every photograph, every stolen file, every lie Marta had told over the past 3 months. Her lawyer's confident expression gradually faded as the evidence mounted. This is character assassination, he protested weakly. This is documentation, Nina replied. Everything here is factual and verifiable. The mediator looked uncomfortable. Mr. Belmonte, while this evidence is comprehensive, I'm not sure it's relevant to asset division. It's relevant because Marta used marital assets to conduct her affair. Hotel rooms, dinners, weekend getaways, all charged to our joint credit card. She also compromised my career by giving Jake access to confidential information, potentially exposing me to lawsuits and professional sanctions. I pulled out the final piece of evidence, a letter from my company's legal department. My employer is considering terminating me due to the security breach. If that happens, my pension, my stock options, my entire financial future disappears. All because my wife decided to play corporate spy for her boyfriend. Marta finally spoke. I didn't know what Jake was doing with those files. Ignorance isn't a defense, I replied. You gave him access to my laptop. You knew he was copying information. Whether you understood the implications or not, you enabled industrial espionage. Her lawyer whispered something in her ear. She shook her head violently. Mrs. Belmonte, the mediator said, given the evidence presented, I think your husband's proposal is reasonable. Perhaps we should— No. Marta stood up abruptly. This is insane. You're trying to punish me for having an affair. I'm trying to protect myself from the consequences of your affair. I corrected. There's a difference. Jake's gone. He left town, left his wife, left everything. I lost my job, my reputation, my marriage. What more do you want? I want my life back. The life you destroyed when you decided I wasn't exciting enough for you. I made a mistake. You made a choice. Every day for 3 months, you chose Jake over me. You chose lies over truth, excitement over stability, fantasy over reality. Those weren't mistakes. They were decisions. The room fell silent. Marta sat down heavily, tears streaming down her face. I loved you, she whispered. No, you didn't. You loved the security I provided, the comfortable life we built together, but you didn't love me. If you had, none of this would have happened. The mediation ended with Marta agreeing to my terms. 70% of the assets, including the house. She would take her personal belongings and enough money to start over somewhere else. As we gathered our papers, her lawyer made one last attempt. Mr. Belmonte, my client is willing to sign a non-disclosure agreement. In exchange, perhaps we could revisit the asset division. Oh, I said firmly, the division stands, and there won't be any NDA. But surely you don't want this to become public. It already is public. Has been for weeks. Ask anyone at Marta's former office, or Jake's former office, or their former social circle. Everyone knows what happened. I looked at Marta one last time. You wanted excitement, adventure, a life worth gossiping about. Congratulations. You got it. 3 months later, the divorce was final. Marta moved to Portland, where Victoria had relocated after her own latest romantic disaster. I heard through mutual friends that she was working as a freelance copywriter, starting over at 40. Jake never resurfaced. Sarah Turnbull told me he'd moved to California, probably to reinvent himself with a new name and a new set of lies. I kept the house, kept my job, and slowly began rebuilding my life. The anger faded, just as Sarah had predicted, leaving behind something cleaner and stronger. On a Saturday morning in spring, I was working in the garden when my neighbor, Mrs. Chen, called over the fence. Alex, how are you doing? Good, I said, and realized I meant it. Really good. I'm glad. You deserve happiness. Thank you. You know, she said conspiratorially, I never liked that Jake fellow. Too loud, too flashy. And the way he looked at other women. She shook her head disapprovingly. You saw him here? Oh, yes, several times while you were away. I almost called you, but I didn't want to interfere. I smiled. I wish you had. Would it have made a difference? I thought about that. Would it have changed anything if I'd known earlier? Would Marta have chosen differently if she'd been caught sooner? Probably not, I admitted, but it might have saved some time. Mrs. Chen nodded wisely. Sometimes people need to make their own mistakes, even when those mistakes hurt the people they love. That evening, I sat on my back porch with a beer, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and crimson. For the first time in years, I felt at peace. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Alex, it's Marta. I know I have no right to contact you, but I wanted you to know I'm sorry. For everything, I hope you're happy. I stared at the message for a long time, then deleted it without responding. Some conversations were over. Some bridges, once burned, were meant to stay that way. I finished my beer and went inside, closing the door on the past and walking into whatever came next.